Island of the Blue Dolphins by Scott Odell, Chapter 21. I did not take Rontu with me when I left the cave that night, and I closed the opening so that he could not follow me, for if the Aleuts had brought their dogs, he would surely smell them out. I went quietly through the brush to the headland. Before I climbed to the top of the high rock, I could see the glows of the Aleuts' fires. They had camped on the mesa at the place and the spring that they had used before. It was less than half a league from my cave. I stood for a long time watching the fires, wondering if I should move to another part of the island, perhaps to the cave where the wild dogs had lived. I was not afraid that the men would discover me, because they worked on the beach or hunted in their canoes all day. It was a girl I was afraid of. The ravine was tangled with brush, which was hard to walk through, but in the ravine grew seeds and roots. Sometimes when she was looking out for food, she might wander by the spring and see that it was used and find my steps leading to the cave. I stood on the rocks until the Aleuts' fires died. I thought of everything I could do, of the different places I could go, and at last decided to stay in the ravine. The far end of the island had no springs, and if I moved there, I would have no place to hide the canoe, which I might need. I went back to the cave and did not leave it until the moon was full. There was little food left. Rontu and I climbed to the headland, and when we passed the house, I saw that 3 of the white whale ribs had been cut from the fence. No one was there, or else Rontu would have barked. I waited till the tide was low, which was close to dawn, and filled the baskets with seawater and abalones. We were back in the cave before it grew light. The seawater kept the abalones fresh, and when we had gone out again, the night was too dark to find our way to the reef. I lay there to gather roots. I could never gather many before the sun rose, so I went out every morning until the next moon came. Then I came to the reef for abalones. During all this time, I saw none of the Aleuts, nor did the girl come near the cave, though I found her footsteps far down the ravine where she had been to dig roots. The Aleuts had not brought their dogs, which was fortunate, for they would have found Rontu's tracks and followed it to the cave. The days were long for Rontu and me. At first, he would pace up and down the cave and stand at the opening, sniffing through the cracks. I did not let him out, except when I was with him, for fear he would go to the camp and not come back. After a while, he got used to this and would lie all day and watch whatever I was doing. When it was dark in the cave, even when the sun was high. It was dark in the cave, even when the sun was high, so I burned the small fish that I had stored. By their light, I began to make the cormorant's skirt, working every day on it. The 10 skins that I had taken off a tall rock were now dry and in condition to sew. All of them were from male cormorants, whose feathers are thicker than those of the female and much glossier. The skirt of yucca fibers was simple to make. I wanted this one to be better, so I cut the skins carefully and sewed them with great care. I made the bottom first, putting the skins end to end and using 3 of them. For the rest of the skirt, I sewed the others along their sides so that the feathers ran one way on the upper part and a different way along the bottom. It was a beautiful skirt, and I finished it on the day after the second moon. I had burned all of the little fish, and since I could catch no more until the Aleuts left, I took the skirt outside to work on it there. I had found footsteps to the ravine twice again after the first time, but no closer to the cave. I had begun to feel safe, for the winter storms would soon be here and the Aleuts would leave. Before another moon, they would be gone. I had never seen the skirt in the sunlight. It was black, but underneath the green and gold colors. All the feathers shimmered as though they were on fire. It was more beautiful than I ever thought it would be. I worked fast now that it was almost finished. Yet from time to time, I would stop and hold it against my waist. "Rontu," I said, feeling giddy and happy. "If you were not a male dog, I would make you one too, as beautiful as this." Rontu, who was sprawled out at the mouth of the cave, raised his head and yawned at me and went back to sleep. I was now standing in the sunlight, holding the skirt up to my waist, when Rontu leapt to his feet. I heard the sound of steps. It came from the direction of the spring, and as I turned quickly, I saw the girl looking down at me from the brush. My spear stood beside the mouth of the cave within easy reach. The girl was not more than 10 paces from me, and with one movement I could have picked up the spear and thrown it. Why did I not throw the spear? I do not know, for she was one of the Aleuts who had killed my people on the beach of Coral Cove. She said something, and Rontu left the mouth of the cave and walked slowly towards her. The hair raised on his neck, but then he walked to where she stood and let her touch him. The girl looked at me and made a motion with her hands, which I took to mean that Rontu was hers. "No!" I cried and shook my head. I picked up my spear. She started to turn, and I thought she was going to flee back to the brush. She made other motions, which I took to mean that Rontu was now mine. I did not believe her. I held the spear over my shoulder, ready to throw. "Truck," she said, pointing to herself. I did not say my name. I called Rontu, and he came back. The girl looked at him and then at me and smiled. She was older than I, but not so tall. She had a broad face and small eyes that were very black. When she smiled, I saw her teeth were worn down from chewing seal sinew, but they were very white. I was still holding the cornet skirt, and the girl pointed to it and said something. There was one word, "Wincha," which sounded like the word means pretty in our language. I was so proud of the skirt that I did not think. The spear was in my hand, but I held up the skirt in the sunlight so that it shined all on it. The girl jumped down from the ledge and came over to me and touched it. "Wincha," she said again. I did not say the word, but she wanted to hold the skirt, and I gave it to her. She put it up against her waist and let it fall from her hips, turning one way to the other. She was graceful, and the skirt flowed around her like water, but I hated the Aleuts and took it from her. "Wichita," she said. I had not heard the words spoken for long before they sounded strange to me, yet they were good to hear, even though it was an enemy who spoke them. She said other words that I did not understand, but now, as she spoke, she looked over my shoulder towards the cave. She pointed to the cave, and then to me, and made gestures as if she were making a fire. I knew what she wanted me to say, but I did not say it. She wished to know if I lived there in the cave, so she could come back with the men and take me to their camp. I shook my head and pointed to the far end of the island, away, for I did not trust her. She kept looking towards the cave, but she said nothing more about it. I had the spear, which I could have thrown. I did not, though, and I feared she would return with the hunters. She came over to me and touched my arm. I did not like the feel of her hand. She said more words and smiled again and walked to the spring and drank. The next moment, she had disappeared into the brush. Rontu did not try to follow her, and she made no noise as she went. I crawled back to the cave and began to pack the things I owned. I had all day to do it because the men were working and would not return to their camp before night. By nightfall, I was ready to go. I planned to take my canoe and go to the west part of the island. I could sleep there on the rocks until the Aleuts left, moving from place to place if I need to. I carried 5 baskets up the ravine and hid them near my house. It was getting dark, and I had to go back to the cave for two that were still left. Carefully, I crawled through the brush and stopped just above the mouth of the cave and listened. Rontu was beside me, and he listened also. No one could go through the brush in the dusk without making a sound, especially someone who had lived in it for a long time. I went past the spring and waited, and then on the cave. I felt that someone had been there while I had been away. They could be hiding in the dark, watching me. They were waiting until I went into the cave. I was afraid, so I did not go in, but quickly turned around. As I did, I saw something in the front of the cave and on the flat rock that I used for a step. It was a necklace of black stones of the kind that I had never seen